blame Jim. This is all his fault. No, I'm just kidding. Well, welcome and welcome back. I'm B, and today we're discussing from season 3, episode 2. So, this was a particularly sad episode. There were themes of grief, despair, anger, doubt, and hopelessness. The town seems to feed off of these emotions. In the first scene, we see Jade going to check on Boyd and Tien Chen in the barn. They show us Tien Chen's full body, which they didn't show last episode. And can I say that Harold was acting his behind off in this scene? You could feel his despair and sadness. And then in the next scene, Jim finds what looks to be cabbage by the lake. He thinks it's enough food to feed all of the people in town. Jim and Kenny are feeling hope now, but we know that that's going to be short lived. It seems like the town provides a sense of false hope, only to take it away as we're going to see this episode. Now we're back with Tabitha and Victor's father, Henry, at his home. Henry wants to know where she got Victor's lunchbox from, and Tabitha is trying to tell him, but Henry is getting impatient. And I can understand him wanting her to get to the point. Henry initially doesn't seem to believe her, even though we know that he's heard the story about the town before from his wife, which we'll talk about more later. I'm thinking maybe Henry is just in disbelief since his wife and children were missing for 40 or 30 years, and that's why he's reacting the way that he is to her. Back in town, Boyd and Jay take Tien Chin's body to the church. Everyone in town is just watching him, and then we get flashbacks of Tien Chin's death. I didn't think the flashbacks were necessary. I was glad that they didn't show her getting ripped apart in the first episode, but then they showed it in this episode. So I just thought that that was an unnecessary thing for them to show. And then we get the scene with Victor, Julie, and Ethan. And it seems like Victor kind of regressed this episode. He threw a mini tantrum and he left. And poor Victor, right? He's having to deal with all this trauma. He's losing people that treat him with kindness and respect. But I also felt really bad for Julie in this scene. She's asking Victor, who is physically an adult, for help in caring for Ethan. But as we all know, Victor is not mentally an adult. So she's having to take on her brother's grief and her own, and that is a lot to ask of a teenager. So we're back with Tabitha and Henry. And it's interesting that Henry was in denial about Fromville until Tabitha mentioned saving the children in the locked tower. I think that this specific detail helped him to realize that all of what she was saying is true. And then we get to the scene with Donna and Boyd. So I was with Donna when she told Boyd that, was it worth it? Did he have to go outside to save the animals? However, I don't think that anyone should blame him for what happened to Tien Chen because he reacted in the moment. As I said before in the other video, he was in survival mode. But ultimately, they could have figured things out in the morning, like Donna said. But you know what? One thing Boyd is going to do is he's going to give it back to you. And he gave it back to Donna. And I wasn't mad at it. He was like, get the F out of here. You were the one having a panic attack about not having food. And Donna was like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. So I am glad that they were able to hash this out in the moment and move on. So now we have Fatima, who is still vomiting, and she loses a tooth, which prompts her and Ellis to go to the clinic. Initially, Ellis is not here for Marielle examining Fatima, and I don't blame him. She just had a terrible relapse, plus he doesn't know who she is. But eventually she examines Fatima and she gives her some medicine and tells her that she needs to eat. So Ellis takes Tabitha back to Colony House, and Fatima is about to enter the house, but she stops because she smells rotten crops. And Fatima is eating the rotten food. Yeah, I think she's got a monster baby in there. Now, I absolutely believe that what is happening to Fatima is supernatural. However, excessive vomiting, losing her teeth, not having an appetite, and possibly pica, which is craving and eating non food, can happen in some pregnant women. So, this is something natural that can happen. But we're in Fromville, so I think she's definitely going to birth a new monster. Next, we get the scene of Kenny and Jim returning with the food. So Kenny is really excited, but that gets cut short. Jim asks, "Where are my kids?" And I was like, "Jim, hush. This is not about you and your children. You should have been home." So this was a really sad scene to watch. Kenny comes to the realization that something's off. He knows it's his mother. This scene was so well done. Him calling out to his mother, knowing that she's dead. We see him trying to keep it together in the diner. And then, just to add insult to injury, they were wrong as hell for playing Celebration in a diner. That was incredibly cruel. And the forces in the town are trying to push Kenny to his breaking point. Also, the collective grief around Tien Chen's death overshadowed the fact that Jim and Kenny did find food. I was also here for Julie getting Jim together. Now, she didn't need to cuss at him, but I was here for her calling him out. She provides further insight that when Thomas died, she had to be the fill in parent for Ethan when she was 15 years old. And I'm sure many people who were or who are older siblings felt Julie in that moment. It's unfair to have to parent your younger sibling when your parent or guardian aren't doing it. And Jim needs to prioritize his children. I'm not saying he's wrong for wanting to find Tabitha, but his children need him right now, and he knows that Tabitha would want him to focus on them. I am going to give Jim some points for allowing Julie her space to express what she felt in the moment and actually listening to her. So we go back to Henry and Tabitha, and we learn that Victor's mother, Miranda, had visions of the Ngui children locked in a tower calling out to her. And these visions were triggered by an acid trip. Miranda painted everything that she saw in her vision. And we see these images are of people and the events in the town. So Miranda thought that she'd been chosen to free the children, but she wasn't the first. There were others that were chosen before her, but all of them had failed and none of them had been able to set the children free. So now Tabitha is the chosen one. And then we move on to Kenny. So I felt Kenny on wanting to go into the tunnels and burn them damn monsters up. It was an unaliving mission, but I don't blame him. And I'm glad that Boyd did go with him. Kenny finds out that Tien Chen didn't die alone and that Boyd was there to comfort her. Boyd repeats what Tien Chen said in Cantonese to Kenny. She said, "Take care of him. He'll be alone now." Why did I almost cry in this scene? It was so sad. And Ricky, who plays Kenny, he was emoting. And he's been acting his behind off this whole episode. And then also we have the scene of Jade and Christy prepping Tien Chen's body, which was very touching. And the funeral scene was sad, of course. And so we have the final scene, y'all, and it's with Jim. The phone rings, Jim picks it up, and it's Thomas. Now, why the hell is Thomas calling from the grave? And ain't he's supposed to be dead? Plus, Thomas was a baby when he died, so how is he talking so clearly? But seriously, I don't think it was a coincidence that Jim got a call from Thomas after Julie tells him that he needs to step it up as a parent. The evil forces of the town, they're clearly listening, and they knew that this would be a way to get to Jim. All right, so that was episode 2. It was a very emotional episode. I think that the story is moving forward. We got some information about Victor's mother, although I just realized that Eloise wasn't mentioned in this episode. Henry didn't ask about her or Miranda, so I'm like, he didn't ask if they were alive or not. So I don't know. I'm wondering maybe if he'll ask next episode. Anyway, what are your thoughts on episode 2? Do you have any predictions or theories on where we're headed? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more horror content.